Hello and welcome to New Dream's Frequently Asked Questions webinar on how to organize an alternative gift fair. This webinar is a follow-up to our previous webinar, How to Organize an Alternative Gift Fair, and we'll answer some of your questions about organizing this type of community event. I'm Shara Drew, Program Director at New Dream. We'll be joined today by Jen Nepper, who has over 10 years experience organizing an alternative gift fair in her community. So I wanted to let you know that for more information, you can search for Alternative Gift Fair Action Kit at newdream.org. And now about our host. As I mentioned, Jen Nepper is joining us today. Jen organized a gift fair in Lancaster, Pennsylvania that is in its 10th year running. She has lots to share about lessons learned and best practices for organizing this sort of community event. Before I hand it over to Jen, I just wanted to say a little bit more about alternative gifts. In general, alternative gifts prioritize meaning over materials and include things like charitable donations, gently used secondhand items, help for a community project, and more. Whether a few dozen or a few hundred people, these fairs are a fun and inspiring way to build community and celebrate the holidays. And so, as I mentioned, we encourage you to go to newdream.org, visit our action kit online, just search for Alternative Gift Fair Action Kit in the search bar on our website at newdream.org. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jen. Welcome so much. Please tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your experience in organizing a wonderful gift fair.
Hi, my name is Jen Nepper, and I'm a nurse. Actually, that's my profession that led me to learning about the Alternative Gift Fair. Back in 2007, I was looking at the newspaper one night at about 3 a.m. and I read about a group of women in Harrisburg that were putting on an alternative gift fair. And the article said, this holiday, your grandma doesn't need another sweater or your dad doesn't need another tie. And that really resonated with me because the holidays were just becoming way too commercialized and focused on stuff. And I was encouraged to see there's another way to approach the holiday season. So I approached those women back in 2007, and then I came back to Lancaster and put together a group of friends. I kind of reached out to everybody I knew, and it came together in 2008, and so we just had our 10th year.
That's so exciting. And the name of your gift fair again is, in case people want to learn more about it?
Sure, it's called gifts-that-give-hope.org. And then, so what the original gift fair was a women's giving circle. That was a project that they had done. And then it evolved to be this umbrella organization, Gifts That Give Hope. And the intention was to be kind of a central place for anybody across the United States who wanted to hold an alternative gift fair. They could host one in their hometown and use our resources, our website, our logo, and all those kind of things.
So neat. Okay, so gifts-that-give-hope.org.
Yeah.
The people can visit there. Great. Thank you so much for joining us and answering all these questions, which we have a bunch of. So let's move on to those. The first question, as I mentioned earlier, this Q&A is a follow-up to our other webinar to how to organize an alternative gift fair. So a lot of these questions reference that webinar. So if you're confused about any of the questions themselves, it may be that you're just coming to this Q&A, but you might want to also go back and watch that webinar because it's filled with really great information. And I just wanted to say before we move on to the questions, if there's anything that we don't cover today that you would really like to know about hosting an alternative gift fair, please feel free to email newdream@newdream.org, and we will be sure to get back to you. And there's a slide at the end that also has that email address on it, so don't worry about writing it down just yet. We'll move on to the first question. And the first one comes out of a suggestion from the webinar, which was before deciding to organize an alternative gift fair, it might be a good idea, Jen, to kind of see what's already out there in your area as far as alternative gift fairs, so as to not recreate the wheel if there's already one going on, that you might want to instead volunteer for one, or at least the first year, kind of volunteer to see what it's about. So I was wondering, this question here says, how do you find them? Someone holding an alternative gift fair may not begin promoting it until around the holidays, but if you want to organize one, you might want to start earlier. So how do you find them?
So, you know, a lot of times it's word of mouth. I hear of them, I read about it in the paper, or I'll see, you know, that a church is hosting an alternative gift fair. There is a website, I'm trying to remember the name of it now, that kind of promoted alternative giving, and sometimes they would have like a place on their website to look at what was maybe going on in your area. But yeah, there's not one central location where you can see, like, you know, put in your zip code and see what's near you. So the best option, you know, you could check on our website. We only have about 4 locations that we have the alternative gift fair. So our goal is to kind of grow this event over the years, you know, across the United States. And, but yeah, it's just kind of doing some grassroots on the ground kind of research to see, you know, what is going on in your area where you're from. I don't have a good answer to that.
If you're looking online, for example, searching around online, are there other keywords besides alternative gift fair that folks might want to search to see if things pop up?
Sometimes you could look at like holiday art market, or fair trade holiday gifts. Sometimes you'll see things of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, those are good tips. All right, let's move on to the next question then. And this one is around space for holding an alternative gift fair. So finding a free and appropriate size venue seems to be a big barrier for starting a new alternative gift fair. So do you have any suggestions, Jen, on securing space? I know in our webinar, churches were mentioned as one good potential venue, but are there others that people should consider?
Well, we are in a place, it's called the Farm and Home Center, and it's part of the Penn State Cooperative Extension. So they have a lot of like classes. It's kind of a community building. So we do pay for the space. You know, I think libraries may be an option depending on the size of your library and, you know, what kind of space availability they have, like a community room. So yeah, churches, community buildings, like maybe even a rec center would be a feasible thing. A lot of times they have like a gym that maybe people may be able to use. Also, we've had a gift fair out in Wisconsin, I think it was. They did it in an elementary school. So they were set up in the cafeteria on a Saturday when the building wasn't in use. And that was because a lot of the organizers for that fair were, I believe, teachers at that school. So kind of it just depends who ends up being involved in the planning aspect of it, because, you know, if you have connections to a church or a, you know, you're a teacher, you know, you may have some of those ideas already figured out based on who's on your team.
Okay. That's really interesting. And then as we'll talk about sort of getting your team together and volunteers together at the beginning. That could be one of the questions that you might talk about sort of in your first meetings, or about potential spaces that people have connected to or might have an innate need.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next question, which is around scheduling. So as far as actually scheduling the alternative gift fair itself, what's the best timing that you think of? I know the holiday months seem to get really busy for folks, but that's also when people are thinking about gifts. So this question is really around your experience with that, and sort of the best time for having success with an alternative gift fair.
Yes, so we used to have our event for about 6 or 7 years. We had it the Saturday prior to Thanksgiving, and that was a decent time. But what happened in our area is the Lancaster County Community Foundation started an event called the Extraordinary Give, and it's a 24-hour event where they match contributions that are given to local nonprofit organizations, and they raise like millions of dollars. And that event ended up being the day before the gift fair for a couple of years. And so we felt that that was too much of asking for contributions in our community. So we decided to bump our gift fair to December. And The second week in December, we felt was a good time because it's not too close to the holidays, but it's a little bit in December, so people are really starting to think about gifts at that point. And so our switch to December has really been beneficial, and our contributions have been higher in those years.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
And so one thing about December in some areas at least is weather, but do you feel like there's always some kind of thing that's not ideal about holding it at a certain time, and you just sort of make your best judgment around that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for us, weather isn't usually a problem in December. Like I said, this year, it was, we had our fair December 8th, the same day as the Arlington Fair was scheduled to take place, but they got hit harder than us with the snow, and they're farther south, and they actually had to move their gift fair to the next day because of the weather. And so I think for us, and I've done a lot of different events where you're selling things. And so, in December, people are just practically handing over cash to you because they are buying for teachers and family members and things like that. So I probably wouldn't consider anything outside of November or December for this kind of event.
Great. Super helpful. All right. Hope that answered that question. And on to the next one. This one refers also back to the webinar. So there was a suggestion from one of the presenters to keep it simple. So there were two presenters on the webinar, and one talked about an alternative gift fair that he organizes, which is really based all on charitable contributions. So different charities come set up, and folks are encouraged to donate in honor of somebody, and that's sort of the gift. They have a little handout that they take home, or a little card after contributing, and that was really his event was organized around that. And the other presenter had organized an abundance swap, which was basically that folks in this community would show up to the event with 3 items that were great items that they would potentially love to receive as a gift, and everybody took turns sort of swapping for different things that they would like to take home. And there was the suggestion that it might be better to keep it simple, like to maybe not try to complicate things too much by having charities with a swap with maybe local handmade goods, for example. But I was wondering if you had any suggestions about mixing the event, or if it could be possible to have some to mix those things and have it still be a great alternative gift fair. Any things you might avoid?
That is a good question. Because we do have a little bit of a lot of things going on at the gift fair, but in the space that we have it in the auditorium, we have all of the nonprofits in the auditorium. So that's where the alternative gifts, like you described, of giving in-kind gifts to a loved one. And so then in a different room, we have the marketplace, which we call anything that's a tangible gift item. So that can be anything that's fair trade. And then we also work with a lot of social enterprises here in Lancaster. So that can be, we have a local group called Revolution, and they take old leather that would otherwise be thrown away, and they work with homeless women to make jewelry out of that. So those are the kind of things that we sell, but we intentionally keep it in a separate space so that people know that in this room I buy tangible things, and in the other room it's the alternative gift. And we felt it's important to we kind of promote this idea of pairing them together or accompanying them, and saying, because we know not everybody in the world is open to just getting an alternative gift, like a card that says, a contribution has been made in your name. It's of course meaningful, but it's hard to get everybody away from material gifts. So our mindset is, the power of consumer contributions and where you spend your money really can, empower people that otherwise are not making ends meet. So, especially with consumable type items. So we do have like fair trade chocolate and coffee and tea at the gift fair, just to give some exposure to that, and to say, hopefully kind of change people's mindset and say, like, well, if I'm going to keep buying olive oil or coffee that's a staple, maybe I can shift my buying practices to buy things that are ethically sourced. So I think it is possible to do a variety of different things. Even the swap that you talked about, I think that would be, something to consider. Anything that's community building, you may get people there for different reasons. If they say, hey, I'm coming for this swap, but then I end up, oh, I didn't know there's an alternative component here too, and I love that. So I think that's why I always have the mindset that we do a lot of different things that appeal to different people, because that's what kind of gets them in the door.
Right. Well, that's neat. Even like having a swap as sort of like an event at the beginning or before the opening of the actual alternative gift fair could be a really neat idea. There's enough space to do that.
Right. Just to get that idea in people's heads, like, oh, a swap. Or everybody in my road, like, like you guys promote, not everybody needs a lawnmower. What's the idea of like, we can all share the resources that we have? And I think just giving people that idea is sometimes enough to say like, oh yeah, you're right. I never thought of that.
Right. Neat. Okay. All right, we'll go on to the next question. This one is, do you have any tips on enlisting volunteers to help with the planning of the alternative gift fair and day of help?
So I had told Edna, who is looking to start an alternative gift fair in her area in Virginia. And I said, basically when I first found out about this, I came home, and it's before I even had Facebook. And I just remember emailing everybody I knew that, friends or people that went to my church, whoever I thought would be interested in something like that, someone who's humanitarian kind of minded. And I just said, hey, I came across this really awesome idea. Let's get together and see if we can do this in Lancaster. And so it was just kind of like, I always say it's like a slow growing snowball that you just kind of plant this seed and people really start to say like, oh yeah, I like that idea. And so yeah, my family members, both my sisters initially started out with me, and my one sister's on the planning committee. She's an accountant. So we're very thankful for the people that help keep track of money. So, but yeah, just kind of like, my sister joined, and then she's like, oh, I have a friend who's an accountant. She can come help us out with the numbers. And, it just kind of is like, oh, I have a friend who is good with marketing. Let's bring her on. So kind of like word of mouth.
Oh, that's great. And so do you, and first, before I go on to Edna, is a former program director at New Dream, who is wonderful and very interested in alternative gift fairs, and sounds like maybe thinking of starting one up on her own. But also, I was just wondering, so it sounds like maybe you just kind of see where people's interests are and find a role for them that way? Or are there times when you need to sort of say, we need somebody to do, I don't know, cleanup, which probably you don't have a ton of people saying, yes, I'm enthusiastic about cleanup. But how do you manage that kind of part of it?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that kind of grew too out of people, saying like, I think I asked a friend of mine who headed up his youth group. I'm like, can they all come at the end of the day and clean up? Because by the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody and, or clean up and all that kind of stuff. So, that just kind of, it's like, yeah, it's really kind of grassroots, and it evolved. We say to our team, like, hey, we need cleanup people. So one year, one of my friends worked at a plant right near where we had the event. And like, this is a good idea. Something to consider is a lot of employers, want their employees to maybe volunteer as part of their commitment of giving back to their community. So it might be something that you ask around at different companies and say, hey, would anybody be willing to come, even just for an hour? Like we tell people, like our cleanup crew comes at like 3:30. Our event is over at 4, and they're kind of like ready to go then once the fair is done. But I do try to recruit people. I think part of my interest in life is connecting people to the things that they're really passionate about. So I don't put like quiet people in like a position where they have to be like sales. I put people that are good with numbers, I put them at the checkout. So try to find where people's natural giftings lie.
That makes great sense. Excellent. Thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is a biggie. So it's around the amount of time that you dedicate to planning an alternative gift fair. And I imagine this is one a lot of folks might have if they're thinking about maybe planning one, how much time commitment it takes and sort of when when they'll be working more hours versus maybe in the earlier months, it's not as many. So I was wondering if you could just give a little breakdown of like how much time you're spending in which months up to the actual event.
That's a good question. We meet monthly, just to kind of keep everybody on track and, meeting us as a group. It's important that we have cohesion as a volunteer group, I think. And so for some of us, right now is when we have our application for our nonprofits online, and they can apply up until like June 1st. So we just got our nonprofit applications, and what we meet as a committee then the end of June to decide our 30 nonprofits that we'll keep in the gift fair. And so, probably kind of in the fall is when some of our marketing people get a little bit busier because they're writing press releases, and we do everything online. So we work with Square and different formats. I'd have to check with my more technical people, but getting our gift items finalized and like the wording of them. I don't say that to have it be daunting to people, to think about it as a year-long kind of thing, because there's so much benefit that you get out of it. So it's not like to me, it never feels like a task or a chore, because it's part of that community that we've built up. But I would say that the people that do the graphics, they're definitely busier in the fall months leading up to the gift fair. It's getting things finalized.
Got it. So your team meets monthly.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? All year round. And then do you have more frequent meetings in the fall, or is it mostly?
No, we still stick to monthly. And, a lot of us, we set up a really great website. If anybody ever wants to use this as a great way to communicate with a lot of people, is Slack. There may be other platforms too, but Slack is a website that you can have different channels in there, and you can have everybody on your team in that grouping. And we have different channels, like for finance and the marketing, and then we have a general fund. And then there's one of my favorite aspects of the gift fair is the education tab, our initiative that we work on, because with it moving to December, what I really like is it's close to Human Rights Day, which was first recognized December 10th of 1948, soon after World War II ended. And so what we do to recognize that is we have like a scavenger hunt that we put together for kids, or anybody really can fill out. And what we do is we align it with the different nonprofits that work towards various aspects of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Some of the articles in there, and when they complete that scavenger hunt, then they can take home a free book. And we have a variety of books that we get that pertain to human rights, whether it's refugees and access to clean water or safe living environment, all those different things. So that was a side note, but that's one of my favorite aspects of the fair.
Oh, that's really neat. You mentioned the books too, and also earlier you mentioned that you do pay for space. So I was wondering, are the books donated, or do you have like a little fund that you use to purchase some of the things for your alternative gift fair?
We do have a fund, and we also have some of the people on the planning committee contribute to that cause, and then we do offer that people can give a donation if they want to take home one of the books, because we want early literacy and literacy in general, especially about these kind of topics, is very important to us, and we don't want it to be a deterrent to any children coming to the fair. So we do it by donation, and so that money helps us cover some of our costs. But our overall goal is we get sponsorships for the gift fair to offset our costs. And so yeah, that's one of our big things that we do.
Okay, from like local businesses or?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So each of us, we ask our employers, or we ask our churches, or, I always hit up my dentist and my accountant and my lawyer, those kind of, all those people in your life. So we just kind of reach out to people that we have a personal connection to and who might be interested in supporting these kind of efforts.
Neat. Great idea. Okay. All right, the next question is around charities participating in the alternative gift fair. And maybe you could describe a little bit about like the shopping list that you talked about and what a charity might offer as a potential gift. And the question is also around if a charity wants to participate, but they're having a tricky time coming up with those 3 levels of gifts, like ways to help make that easier for them. If you have any suggestions.
Yeah, so what we do is we reference Heifer International. Most people have heard of that. Like we describe the gift fair as like a live version of a gift catalog. So most people have seen a Heifer gift catalog at some point in their life, and a lot of big organizations will send those around the holidays. So anything that anybody does, we can come up with an alternative gift. So say, local, it's a national organization actually, but they have a local office. It's called Reach Out and Read. And that is an initiative to promote early literacy. And so it's run by physicians. So what they do is primary care providers that see children for well child checkups from ages birth to up to 5, they give them books at each of those visits from that time period, from birth to age 5. And they talk to their parents about the importance of reading with their children, because they know that the long-term impacts are reduced poverty when children have that early bonding and that early access to language. So, one of their gift items would say, $5 goes towards, purchasing a gift for a child, or purchasing a book for a child. And then what our gift description, it would say that, and then it would also say the mission statement of Reach Out and Read in that gift description. So, I'm just thinking of some of the nonprofits that we've had that are national, well-known organizations like Habitat for Humanity. They've had gifts, just, even like $5 goes towards a hammer to help build a house for someone transitioning out of homelessness, or like Nurse Family Partnership, another national organization. It would say a certain dollar amount that would say this goes towards a visit from a nurse to a new mother to help facilitate early mothering skills, or to help that mom have a stable home life, or to help her start up school. So anything can be made into an alternative gift. And for what we do is we look at that. If they're having trouble with it, we look at that organization's mission statement and say, like, well, this is what we can do. We can talk about gifts that go towards furthering your mission statement.
Neat. And are there standard gift amounts that you recommend, or does each charity or nonprofit come up with their own kind of dollar amount that makes sense for a gift?
Well, what they do is traditionally what we started out doing, we had 3 gift amounts. And then what we ended up doing is making the 3rd gift item just an open-ended one that people could just give to the overall mission of that organization. So it wasn't a specific gift. But then the first 2 items, we do recommend keeping the first one at a lower range, maybe like $5 to $10. And then maybe the second one, $25 to $45, in that ballpark. And so, we found that the lower price items, you sell a lot of them. So you have quantity. But then, for example, there's an organization called World Bicycle Relief that comes to the gift fair, and they have these buffalo bikes, they call them, that people in rural parts of Africa can take these bikes riding all over in rough terrain, and they teach them how to repair the bikes if they'd have problems. And so what they'll often do is their open-ended gift, they'll say however much it is. For about, I think a buffalo bike's maybe like $140 or something. So they'll give $140 because they know that goes towards a buffalo bike. So, so we so we work with people to figure out, how they want to do that. But we definitely recommend a lower ranged items, so you kind of can sell a lot of those, the quantity wise, and to give a good representation. Like if we say, work with like a local organization that has like a food component and also a clothing component of working with homeless people, perhaps. So we say like, part of their work is with food security, and then maybe another gift goes to helping like returning to work kind of initiative.
Neat. Very neat. Thanks, Jen.
Anytime.
Going on to the next question. Are national or international charities, if they're included in a gift fair, expected to send a representative and to the actual gift fair? And if not, then how do you include those groups?
We've done a couple where an international organization or national organization may have like a local representative, like Heifer is one of them. They have like local volunteer groups, so they've been at the gift fair with us. We've also done some work with like the Jewish World Watch when they had the solar cooker project. We partnered with, or we worked with the local synagogue here, and their like sister organization. They kind of like adopted that, and they came to man that table at the gift fair. And then actually last year we helped bring in a woman from Link. It's Liberty in North Korea. They are based out of California, and we brought her into the gift fair because we really have always wanted, a lot of us have a heart for the people of North Korea, and we brought that woman in, and the day prior to the gift fair we had her go around and speak at different high schools and talk about what's going on in North Korea. So we kind of kind of helped her get some exposure with that message. So, if somebody, and usually that's kind of like from a personal kind of pursuing kind of thing, but if someone completely random sent us a message and said, we're a national organization and we don't really have anybody to come, I don't know that I would pursue that. I think it's very important to have someone there that can speak to what you are doing.
Okay. So for your gift fair, are most of the organizations that you have represented organizations that volunteers have connections to or causes that people are passionate about? And how many sort of just random inquiries do you get from groups hoping to participate?
We found the number 30 of nonprofits is like the sweet spot. One year we had 40, and that was way too many. It was like saturated, and it diluted their results and how much money they were able to take home from the fair. So 30 seems to be a reasonable size for us, and we try to focus on having about 60% local and 40% either national or international. And our international ones tend to be organizations that have like a home base here in Lancaster, organizations like Hope International. They're headquartered here in Lancaster, but they work all over the world with microfinance and working with people to get them out of poverty. So, what we do is on our website, we put out the application, and then we put that on our Facebook page and say, hey, nonprofits, if you're interested in being part of the gift fair, here's the application that you need to fill out. And sometimes we just put that out there, and then there's other nonprofits that we look at and we say, hey, we love the work they do, and we kind of pursue them. And then what we do is, when we first started the fair, we looked at the UN Millennial Development Goals, which kind of led us up to 2015, and then it evolved into the Sustainable Development Goals. So what we try to look at nonprofits from a diverse perspective of things that they're working to address in the world, like reducing poverty and helping maternal health, improving access to education, all those kind of things. So we try to kind of hit on a lot of different areas.
Interesting. That's a really good tip. So you have that sort of those goals as your kind of guide as you consider the groups participating, and with that number 30 in mind too. Okay, this goes right into our next question really well, which is what questions do you ask nonprofits that want to participate? So it sounds like you have an application on your website And there was also in the Alternative Gift Fair webinar, there was a suggestion to kind of vet nonprofits before inviting them to participate. And so I was wondering how you do this, and if there are any red flags that have come up with you before as like, nonprofits you might not want to include, or anything like that.
Well, they have to be a 501c3, and they have to be able to provide someone to come to the table at the gift fair. And we do ask that they, we do have an application fee for them. And we didn't always have that, but we felt that if we implemented that, we'd get more buy-in and engagement from them. So what we do is we do ask to a degree that they promote the gift fair within their social media circles and those kind of things. And so, and we may have it that, we tell people, like, when you come to the fair, send your most engaging person, which, they're going to be out there talking to people. And we see a direct link between when you send your most encouraging or, outgoing person and talks to people, they have increased sales. And we've had people who come to the fair and they sit there looking angry at their table. And so you're not going to have as many sales with that. So, those kind of things influence whether, we have you come back in future years, because if you're going to not be an active participant, or if you're going to complain that you don't have electric, even if I told you we don't guarantee access to electric, those are the kind of things we keep in mind. But, there's nothing like, that we have arguments or things like that with people, but it's more, we don't, we try not to have like replication of missions. Like, right. If people are working with women and children, we don't have more than one of them. We don't want there to be a sense of competition.
I see. Okay. All right. That leads into the next question too, which is around a nitty-gritty question about actually donating at the event. So the question is, when donating to nonprofits, does each nonprofit accept the donation at each table, or is there one checkout register at the end? And then just how does that kind of pan out?
So there's tables in the auditorium where each nonprofit has an 8-foot table set up. And so you can interact with them and talk with them. And then when you leave that room, we have checkout at one central location. So we have our accounting team there, and they have their computers, and we run everything through Square. And so we can keep track of like how many books were donated to Reach Out and Read. So the day of the fair, we have those sales taking place, and then we have online giving until the end of December. So once the end of December happens, then our accountants can go through and kind of run their accounts and say, $800 goes to this organization, and they can kind of divvy that out. So the nonprofits don't see any of the money the day of the fair, or even in the holiday season itself. So everything is kind of calculated and processed and things like that. So we usually get a check out to the nonprofit end of January, early February.
Okay. Helpful. Great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is around, it's specifically about the abundance swap sort of idea, but it might also apply to any kind of items that are being donated that might be sold at an alternative gift fair. If there are leftover items, do you have any tips on finding homes for those at the end of the event?
I would say probably to connect with, local nonprofit organizations. We've not personally done the swap component, so we don't have that problem to find. I mean, it is funny, the end of the gift fair, there's still like a lot of the paper tangible things, and I end up having to take that home in my car, and I'm always disgruntled about that, even though I know, and I store that in my house from year to year, the cards and things like that. But, I try to be a minimalist, but yet you still have a lot of things that go into planning the fair. So, but yeah, nothing that we really have to find a home for.
Okay. And then one question I have too, which there's not a slide on, but um, I'm thinking about, so we've talked a lot about starting up an alternative gift fair, but do you also have any tips on once you've started it up, kind of keeping it going from year to year?
Mhm. I think for me, I'm kind of someone that like likes change. I'm always kind of looking around, seeing what's going on in Lancaster, where I live, or even trends on a national basis. Like I follow your work, and I'm always encouraged by what New Dream is doing and kind of that the becoming minimalist movement to say, really trying to tap into what's going on around us and saying people are really tired of all this commercialism. How can we really promote the gift fair as really a true alternative to that? But what we also try and do is kind of mirror what's going on in our community. Like I mentioned, the social enterprises. So we try to, know what's going on, the social enterprises in our area, and we have as many of our food vendors as we can be social enterprises, and we make food an integral part of our event. So, for example, we have several companies, food companies. One is called Upuhar, which means gift in Bengali, I believe. And that was started by a local woman who wanted to provide employment for refugees who face barriers to employment if they didn't speak English. So she started a food company. And so, you can go to the gift fair and you can have food from Iran and Syria and have tastes from all over the world and know that your contribution is, employing a refugee. And so we try to make everything about the fair socially conscious in some fashion. And just kind of seeing what's out there and saying like, we'll try stuff. Like I think it's been about 2 or 3 years now that we've done the human rights scavenger hunt, as long as it's been in December. And it's just something important that we want to do. I never wanted the alternative gift fair to just be about contributions for nonprofits, which of course is very important, but it's so much more than that. It's kind of, in my mind, being countercultural to this idea that we have to spend all this money at the holidays, and it's not leaving people with a sense of fulfillment or meaning, and there can be other options. So I think that's important to know, and to come and say, oh, I never knew there was this organization or this volunteer opportunity in my own backyard. And I think it's a great place for people, maybe if you're moving into the area, and to say like, hey, where can I go? I'd love to volunteer, but where can I go and get connected with people? So we're hoping that that is a starting point.
I love that community aspect of it too. And it reminds me of, you posted a while ago a short video after you celebrated your 10th alternative gift fair. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that available? I think seeing it too was so powerful for me, just having a little glimpse into what your event is. Is there a place where folks can go and watch that too? Is that up on your website?
It is. We do have a YouTube page, and we've made a lot of videos. Actually, there's one about Reach Out and Read, the one organization that I mentioned earlier. The one doctor, she wears a Dr. Seuss hat the day of the event. So we always say to look for Dr. Kissel. She has her hat on. So we did that to talk about early literacy. Why is that important? How does that relate to poverty? And then we did one about Human Rights Day. And then we generally do a wrap-up video each year to talk about, what we did that year and people's impressions. And so that's available. I think that link is on our website. I'll have to double check that. But again, that goes along with our interest in trying to help people better understand what it is and why it's important.
That's great. So giftsthatgivehope.org.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the final question here you've touched on already so nicely, but I was wondering specifically if there's any one sort of story that comes to mind. The question is, what do participants gain from the experience? But do you have any specific story of something that stands out for you over these 10 years that sort of keeps you going with organizing this? I mean, I know that sounds like you really, really love it, and you've got a great team, and it's a lot of fun, some work, but also a lot of fun for you. But I was just wondering if you had a little story you'd like to end with.
Well, it was probably last year or 2 years ago. My friend Jeanette, she's on the planning committee with me, and we do a lot with the human rights scavenger hunt. She helps put that together. But she got a gift for her daughter's violin teacher. And one of the nonprofits that we have at the gift fair is called SWAN, and it stands for Scaling Notes a Wall at a Time. And it was started by a local woman who taught the violin, and I think her husband was a pastor, but she wanted to provide music lessons for children of incarcerated parents, because we know the statistics that children of incarcerated parents are all that more likely to end up in that predicament themselves. And so she wanted to intervene and provide music lessons, because we all know the power of music, and even having that personal connection with a music instructor or that one stable person in your life can be all the difference for a lot of kids. So my friend Jeanette purchased a gift that went to SWAN. It had to do with music lessons and providing a violin and all those necessary components. And she gave this gift to her daughter's violin teacher. And he was like so excited. He said, "I've never experienced anything like this. This is the best gift I've ever received." Knowing that it was using music, something that obviously was very important to him, using music to go back and benefit the community in some way. So, I always try to give those kind of gifts to my kids' teachers, because I don't think they want more mugs. I could be wrong, but I don't think they want more of those traditional things that we kind of give to them. So that story will always remain with me, because he told Jeanette, he's like, "I'd never gotten anything like that. I'd been a teacher for 25 years, and that was really special to him."
I love that, Jen. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Really special.
Yeah.
All right, then I think we're on to our final slide, which asks you, the listeners and watchers of this FAQ webinar, if you're thinking of hosting an alternative gift fair. We really would love to know about it. So if you're definitely going to host one, or if you're still thinking about it, either way, let's stay connected. Email us at newdream@newdream.org today to let us know. Please put alternative gift fair in your town and state in the subject line. If you can remember, if you don't, that's okay too. We'll still get back to you right away, but it will be a neat way for us to stay connected and know what you're thinking, and any questions that you have either after listening today or just as you start to plan. That would be great. So again, Jen, thank you so very much for sharing all the knowledge with us. This is really great.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we'll wrap up now. So thanks everybody, and thank you for supporting New Dream.
All right.